President Trump's new crackdown on asylum seekers taking full effect today and coming under an immediate legal challenge from groups like the ACLU. The administration's policy requires illegal immigrants from Central America to seek asylum in one of the countries they travel through. They argue that many who make the trek are simply looking to gain the system, loopholes in the American immigration system, and break the law.
This is basic international law, is that if you're fleeing a country and you're seeking asylum, the standard is you seek asylum in the first country you come to. That just makes sense.
As the Trump administration cracks down on asylum seekers, the 45-day window given to Mexico by President Trump to curb illegal immigration is nearing its end. Mexico has detained and deported more people than ever before, detaining more than 29,000 illegals last month alone, deporting close to 22,000, an effort that President Trump took note of today during a cabinet meeting.
There's no question about it. The Democrats are fighting us on a wall. So people can come through. But now what's happening with Mexico, 21,000 soldiers, they're helping themselves a lot because they were having a lot of crime. And the borders were run by the cartels, and Mexico is taking back its country. And I give the president a tremendous amount of credit for that.
Joining me now to talk about it, President of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judd. And Brandon, I understand you have a bit of breaking news for us tonight from the border, El Paso sector of the border. What is it?
Yeah, about 45 minutes ago, we just had another Mexican incursion into the United States, Mexican military incursion into the United States. We had several military personnel from Mexico cross the Rio Grande River, come up to our fence, which is about 200 yards north into the United States. They were looking around. An agent responded, and when the agent responded, the vast majority of them went back. One of them didn't make it back, and the agent tried to take that individual into custody. And you know, a minor scuffle ensued in which the Mexican military official was able to get away and make it back into Mexico. But what that outlines is it outlines the difficulty that we're having on our border. Now, this potentially could have been just an incursion where they're just looking around. That's possible. They weren't carrying weapons, as far as I know, unlike the other a couple months ago when we had the Mexican military come into the United States and disarm some of our National Guardsmen. This very well could have been, you know, just them looking around, but it could have been for nefarious purposes as well. It could have been the drug cartels using the Mexican military to scope out the area in order to cross drugs. So we just don't know, but those are the issues that we're going to be facing on the border.
Yeah, and it's almost a daily crisis, notwithstanding for the longest time Democrats and the media saying crisis. What crisis? There's no crisis. There's no invasion. People aren't coming to get you, said one anchor. I do want to ask you, though, about the border city, I should say, of Del Rio, Texas. As I understand it, migrants were trying en masse to rush the border and take it by force to cross into the United States.
They were. There were several hundred individuals that were upset that they weren't being processed through the port of entry quick enough. So they all got together and they were planning on rushing the port of entry. Now, this is a good case of where the Mexican military stepped up and did a great job in helping us control this situation. But our officers at the port of entry, they also acted immediately and quickly. They quickly shut down the port of entry to where there wouldn't have been a threat even if those individuals would have rushed. But you can see, again, this is what we're facing. These are what our Border Patrol agents are facing on a daily basis. We don't know the good from the bad. We have to be able to separate those individuals. And so when you have when you have certain congressmen that are calling for the decriminalization of people that enter our country illegally, we have to be able to take those people into custody, and we have to be able to verify who they are. You decriminalize it and you just open the borders up carte blanche, and we just don't know who's going to be crossing the border. This is where President Trump has done such a great job on his his own because Congress refuses to help him. He continues to look for ways that he can go about it on his own. But you've got the ACLU, obviously, which is going to fight him on it. But when he wins, he's going to make Congress look silly because he single-handedly is going to be able to control this issue.
You know, if Obama did the same thing, the ACLU wouldn't blink. They wouldn't file a lawsuit. So it's, you know, it's this reflexive action by the liberal ACLU. I do want to ask you about this, a little bit more about this third country asylum rule that the president has instituted now. And we explained it in the introduction that, you know, you have to apply in the country you're passing through, not, you know, come into the United States and apply. And then 3 weeks later, when you're released, you vanish. And, you know, the average illegal immigrant is here 15 years, which only costs the U.S. taxpayers about $600 billion. But is this an effective solution, this third country rule?
It's going to be a very effective solution as long as we can get it through the court system. It's just the progression that the president is working on. He first secured an agreement with the Mexican government that any of his predecessors would have loved to have had. They just didn't have the political will to make it happen. President Trump did. Now you're looking at him making safe third country rules that would require people to apply for asylum at the first country that they come to. This, of course, will drop the number of people that are crossing the border illegally. So you can see that he's doing this systematically, and he is single-handedly causing that drop to happen on the border. We applaud him for that. Our Border Patrol agents applaud him for that because we have to have the help in order to abate this crisis, and we're just not getting it from anywhere else.
Well, the other problem is lawless American law enforcement. And I point your attention to the ICE report that came out. Individuals arrested for suspected crimes, and they were serious crimes. They were all then released by local authorities, police chiefs and sheriffs and so forth, and they ignored the detainer requests from ICE. Now, as I read the law, it's 18 U.S.C. 1324. Those officials who release those people are aiding and abetting, and that's a felony. Shouldn't that be enforced?
Yeah, we have to have the United States Attorney's Office look at this. We have to have the United States Attorney's Office also look at when they're sending out information and letting them know how they can avoid ICE picking them up and taking them into custody lawfully. We have to take a tough look at this, but it's going to be the Department of Justice that's going to have to step up and do their job. But if they don't, we're going to continue to have murders and rapes that happen here in the United States. The left says, oh, it just doesn't happen. But in reality, we have several people that have committed heinous crimes here in the United States that shouldn't be here, and had these sanctuary cities complied with the ICE detainers, those crimes wouldn't have taken place.
Sure. And if somebody dies as a consequence of their letting this illegal alien go, under that statute, the penalty is life behind bars, and people like Kate Steinle would actually still be alive. Brandon Judd, Brandon, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.